So the props that I have nearby are a yoga strap, a blanket, and a couple of blocks. You can have anything you like nearby. Chairs come in handy as props. I do have a chair close by too. Those can be nice for inversions, just getting the legs up. We could do that towards the end of our practice. So please join me in any seat that will be comfortable for you. You are welcome to sit in a chair. You are welcome to kneel or find a cross-legged position. Now, one of the things that we might be mindful of, if we come into a cross-legged seat, do we always put the same leg on top? We usually have that favorite. And let's invite ourselves to start with that second favorite leg in front or on top today. And we may just give ourselves a little wobble rock, sending those sits bones backwards. And the reason we're thinking about doing that is a lot of times we're sitting with a rocked back or a posterior tip in our pelvis. So we're just working those sits bones or ischial tuberosities back, bringing the shoulders over the hips, and attempting to return that inward or lordotic curve into our low back. And it may already be there. For some of us, if we're pretty tight in the back body, that's where we might want to sit up on something, maybe take a blanket or a cushion, a meditation cushion, something that will elevate us a little bit to help us put that inward curve back in the low back. And once we've found our seat, let the eyes rest, following the breath sensations. And consider inhaling through the nostrils and releasing in any way that feels instinctive. And just noticing where that is. Maybe you're exhaling through the nostrils, maybe through the mouth. And over the next few breath cycles, in no hurry to get there, consider exploring a few breath cycles where we are both inhaling through the nostrils and exhaling through the nostrils. And if this is a comfortable exploration, please feel free to stick with it. Otherwise, just revert to breathing in any fashion that feels instinctive for you for these next few moments. Now we may invite the body to begin to find an instinctive and intuitive movement. Now without watching, you're just letting the eyes rest and you're noticing, does the body begin to move? And maybe we just decide to explore a movement. It might be rocking very subtly, very gently forward and back. And even if it feels a little bit peculiar, we might try it just for a few rounds. And then if it feels like, okay, this is fine, stick with it. But maybe we decide to try out another movement. Maybe we shift a little side to side instead. Now, maybe one of those directions feels more instinctive in this moment, and we stick with it or return to it. Or perhaps it feels more instinctive to remain still for the time being and just let the breath move through the body. Consider finding stillness, spinning our palms to face up and bringing the movement into our fingers and into our toes. We may spin the palms to face down and let the shoulders begin to alternately roll. And if it feels okay, let the ribs rock a little side to side. The head, the neck may find a little gliding movement. And just checking in, seeing where we're at. Let's begin to raise that left arm, reach that left arm, and I'm mirroring left arm up in the air. We might continue with finger mobilizations and add in some wrist twirls and go the other way. Let's curl the fingers in from pinky to thumb as we rebend that left elbow. I'm just noticing how that left shoulder, left side of the neck feels. Starting to lean right ear towards right shoulder, and we might find a little nod of the head, stretching into the side of the neck there. Let the chin find its way to the center of the chest. We might just find a little rock of the head, side to side. Settling at center, invite the shoulders forward, invite them high, back and down. Let's tuck the ribs back. Beginning to bend that second arm, maybe right elbow, raising that right arm up in the air, mobilizing fingers, twirling the wrist in second direction. And then curling in from pinky to thumb, let that elbow bend, let the hand come back down, resting. I'm noticing that wake of the movement, that echo of the movement, the sensations through the neck, the shoulder, the elbow, the forearm. You might give the arm a little wobble. And then let left ear lean towards left shoulder. We might be nodding the head, getting into that right side of the neck a little bit more. And let the chin roll towards center. Maybe a little glide, a little rock side to side. Consider finding a couple of blocks. Pressing down, lift the heart, and let's walk the hands or the blocks forward. We'll just start to rock it in, tipping it. As we shift in, we may support the brow, full belly breath, slacken the jaw. We may sigh, we may yawn. And let's rise part way up and begin to walk the hands now over towards the left. Now we might frame that left thigh, left knee, tipping it on the diagonal, perhaps beginning to or continuing to support the brow. And let's bring ourselves back up and take the hands over to second side. Inhale, the heart may rise, and as we exhale, tipping in, leaning in. Let's take our time to rise back up. And as we come on up, the hands, the blocks might walk behind the back, navigating blocks, hands closer together so that we're moving the shoulder blades closer in towards one another. Lifting the heart, lifting the chest. And let's sink back, bending the elbows and extend the legs out. Give a little bit of wiggle to the knees, circle the ankles around. Let's move the ankles in the second direction. Slide the feet together and try drawing the soles of the feet to touch. And then draw the little toe sides of the feet towards the outer hips. We'll just go back and forth. Soles of the feet together, little toe sides of the feet back. And then let's land with soles of the feet forward. And don't worry about this if it doesn't happen and you do not need to use your hands. I'm going to talk with my hands for a moment here. You're going to think about your big toe ball mounds moving forward of the other digits and then swap. So big toe ball mounds forward, the other digits back, and then the other 4 toes forward and the big toes back. Now this may or may not be happening. And if it's not happening, please feel free to bend the knees so that you can assist now. So don't feel like you have to do a deep forward bend to grab the toes, bend the knees, make it easier on yourself. And use your hands to help create a little muscle memory there. And then just kind of snap the toes. They won't really snap like your fingers, but let the toes snap and move. Let's bring the legs in, reversing the cross of the legs. So now we have probably your preferred leg on top or in front. And we'll wobble rock those sits bones back, settling into our seat. Give yourself a moment, breathing. And let's bend again that left elbow and raise the left arm up in the air. Reaching up through the fingers, turning the chin this time to the right. And we may place that right hand on the floor or in a block, inviting side bend, lean. Now feel free to bend the top arm or let that top arm stay energetic. What feels best in your shoulder, your elbow, your low back, side body. And we'll bring it back up to center. Let that arm come down and then glide the left arm, that same arm, over to the right, turning, looking to the right. Perhaps tucking the chin, nodding the head, sussing into the neck a little more. And then we'll bring it back through center, maybe a little roll through the shoulders. Second side. So we'll let that second arm reach up, mobilizing through fingers. Maybe a little nod of the head, turning, looking over to the left. That left hand can come down onto a block. We might slide it out. We may bend that top elbow. We may just keep the arm energetic, reaching long, perhaps tucking the ribs. What feels the best on this side. Let's bring it back up and in, and glide the right arm over to the left. Looking left, fingers may mobilize. And let's bring it back to center. Perhaps we find those blocks again and begin to seek out that forward fold. Maybe we're staying up a little higher or coming a little lower. We may be supporting the brow. And let's start to rise back up and start to find our forward bend on the diagonal towards the right. We do not have to frame the leg. We could be to the inside of the leg, tipping in. We do not have to support the brow, but we might. And let's rise back up, find our way to the middle and over to that second side. So perhaps we're finding that forward diagonal bend to the left. Let's slowly bring it all the way back up to center. And again, walk the hands back behind the back. Again, you might be on blocks instead of directly on the hands. Rocking those shoulders in, let the heart rise. So you can absolutely be on cross behind the back. We might be hands on the ground behind the back. So chest rising, maybe we rock forward so that we're coming on to the shins and the hips rise. This does not have to be your variation today or ever. You can certainly keep the hips down. Let's bring it back in. And if anybody did try out lifting the hips and it went right into the wrist, go for a counter stretch. You might just cluster flex. You might decide hands on the ribs or backs of the hands together. Maybe hands on the thighs, mobilizing fingers. Let's rock on back, slide the legs long, give a little wiggle to those knees. Invite the toes back, keeping heels down on the ground, and get the hips and the low back, a little wobble rock. So let's locate that right leg and just bring the leg up so that we're able to grab hold of the toes and like a fan, fanning the toes apart, spreading those toes wide. Let your hands continue moving down into the ball mounds of the toes, the arch of the foot, and you're just creating this fanning motion with the fingers all the way down to the heel. Now at the heel's a little tougher oftentimes, so you might just want to do some side finger pinching, shouldn't hurt, all the way down around the heel. And if you want a little more depth of pressure, maybe use your fingernails a little bit, walking the fingers back up the foot. Let's come right onto the nails themselves. So you might find big toenail, the front, the back of the toe, give a little squeeze, a little rock, and we might even circle the toe, both directions. And then while we're here, let's draw that big toe out away from second toe And use your other hand to palpate the space between first toe bone and second toe bone. Now you might find a spot of interest that we want to kind of pause and compress into, make sure you can still breathe. And then let's move on to the second toe and we'll draw some circles. So we're just holding on to the front, the bottom of the toe, drawing some circles in each direction. You might even get some toe popping, often like happens with our fingers. You might even give a little wiggle. Let's go for third toe, draw some circles, give a little rock wobble, ring toe, that fourth toe. And then finally your smallest digit or any additional toes. Come all the way back down the foot again, give some squeezes. And let's release, extend, and find that second foot. So just saying hello to the foot, grab hold of the toes and go for that fanning action. Like you're opening a fan. And then continue with that motion all the way down to the heel. Maybe once you get to the heel, you're doing some side finger squeezes. And we might walk back up with our fingernails. And we'll find that big toe. And we're embracing the underside, the top side. We'll draw some circles. And then we'll draw the big toe away from the second toe so that there's some space, some room to palpate between those first two toe bones. And we might find a spot. Maybe we use both hands. We might find a spot where we do a little rock or a squeeze. Let's go for second toe. Circles at the third toe. Little squeeze, little self-massage, ring toe. And then the smallest digit. Perhaps we fan again or just give a few squeezes. Extend the leg, wiggle it out. How are the hands doing? Mobilize those fingers. Let's press forward. Weave the fingers together. Press forward through the palms. Bend the elbows in, and you can choose to use your hands, or we'll keep those fingers bound. Cross one ankle in front of the other. Press down into the feet and rise up to stand. So if we're bringing it up, let's bring it back down. So we'll bend the knees. We'll start to slowly release back down to the ground. Reversing the cross of the thumbs. So probably the thumb that feels a little bit peculiar. And then reversing the cross of the ankles. So we might keep those hands bound and overhead. We might put them down. We might use blocks. Press down into the feet. Try rising up. And let's take it back down. So release the hands as you come down in case you need to catch yourself. Let's go ahead and uncross the ankles. You can always sit up on something. It does make it easier if you're a little more elevated. Put yourself up higher, maybe feet wider, and let's give it a try without the ankle cross. You might find one way, crossed ankles or ankles uncrossed, easier to come to stand. So we'll press down, we'll rise back up, and this time bend the knees, pivot the feet forward if the feet are turned out like a V, like mine were, and then go ahead and find a forward fold, a forward bend. And we may have our hands on our props. You might be using a chair seat. We may tick-tock or rock the hips a little side to side. Sussing out how the hips are feeling, the low back, the back body. Take all the time you need. And let's inhale. Rise halfway up. Inviting the hands to walk over to the right. So that might include your blocks, going for long arms. Feel free to bend into that right knee and roll the left hip back. If you're using blocks, we might be dropping them lower, draping in a little bit more, nodding head. And let's gradually come back to center. And let our hands walk over to that second side. So perhaps we're bending the left knees, we fold in. You can, again, feel free to spin the props higher or spin the props lower. Always looking for what feels right for you in this moment, for this practice. Let's bring it back to center. And you may find that we're rolling in a little deeper. Perhaps we stretch the jaw. And let's rise halfway. Consider where you are on your mat. We might already be at a short edge of the mat. If not, go ahead and pivot around to the short edge of the mat. And let's walk those feet back so that we're coming into a down face dog position. And we may be pedaling our feet, shifting our hips side to side. We may drop that right heel towards the floor, bend the left knee, pivot the left knee over to the right. That left heel is rising. We might give the leg a little wobble as we lengthen the neck. Pivot back to center, left heel lowering, right heel rising, right knee pivoting to the left. And we might just give that shin, that knee a little rock side to side. Pedaling back through the center. If the dog's a little shorter, let's lengthen it out. Slide on forward, looking for a high plank position, and we might shift forward and back through the heels. We may stir. Feel free to stay off the knees, but you're also welcome to land the knees if that suits you. Go ahead and lower down to the belly, point the feet, and let the elbows walk forward. We might find a little shift, side to side, just very gentle side bends. We may turn the chin over to the right, starting to peer over that right shoulder. We may bend the left knee, tuck the left toes. Let that left knee rise and give that left leg a little wobble rock as we press back through left heel. And let's repoint left foot. Find our way to center. Soften, looking for that side bend to the second side. So chin over to the left, and this might be plenty. Maybe we're bending right knee so that we can tuck the right toes, press through the heel so the knee rises. Perhaps we're wobble rocking that hip, that leg a little further back. Repoint the foot. And let's bring ourselves back through to center. Consider sliding the hands back. The heart may rise. Now we might just find a little shift side to side. Lengthening front body at your own pace. Consider dropping back into a child's pose. Forehead may rest on the floor. I'm going to use a block because I have a feeling I'm pretty muffled with my brow down. You might slide a prop underneath the forehead. Now, if your brow is on the floor, it might feel comfortable to extend the arms fully. I find the block gets in the way of that for me a little bit, so I tend to keep my elbows bent when my brow is lifted. But listen to what feels right in your practice in this moment. So we'll take our time to consider returning to down face dog, and we may step the left foot a little closer to the right and let the right leg rise. Drawing the right knee into the nose, rounding the back. And as we inhale, extending that right leg and perhaps pressing up through the heel. We may point the foot, draw the knee to the nose. And then perhaps reach up through that right leg. Maybe right hip is rolling open and perhaps the heel is pressing towards the ceiling. Let's again point the foot, draw the knee into the nose, and this time step the right foot forward between the hands. Consider keeping that left hand down on the ground. You're welcome to bring left knee, back knee down if you prefer. And we may circle that right arm up in the air. We might just keep that right hand on the right thigh. So let's bend that top elbow. Let that top hand come down. Let the hips rise. Peel that left heel up, up, up over the ball mound of the foot. So we're stretching into the toes. And when you feel ready, take as many steps as needed to bring the left foot alongside the right, folding back into our forward fold. Put a little bend in the knees, fan the toes, hug the belly muscles in, and we'll gradually, slowly roll up to stand. Spin the palms to face forward. Crown of the head reaching high. Circling the arms up and overhead. And as we exhale, forward fold. Inhale, heart is rising, and we may have hands on blocks. We may put those blocks off to the side, plant the hands, navigating back into down face dog. And perhaps we're circling the head, getting into the neck. We may wiggle our dog longer if it feels short. Rocking on forward, find that high plank position. Option to get off the wrists entirely. Shift the weight to the right hand, lower onto the left forearm, then drop onto the right forearm. Chin may tuck into the chest, so we have a little rounding, some flexion in the back. Perhaps we let the knees land. We may point the feet, slide on forward, finding our way into a sphinx, releasing down. Slide the hands back, heart rising, cobra, maybe up dog. Let's press on back, find a child's pose. We might be tenting the fingers with the brow down, creeping those tented fingers a little further forward. And then perhaps releasing each palm down to the ground, knuckle the fingerprints towards the floor, wrap those belly muscles in. And as we round the back, we'll tuck the toes, lifting the hips, finding down face dog. Plunging down through the heels. We might slide that right foot in towards midline. Raising the left leg up in the air. Drawing that left knee in towards the nose, back is rounding. Reaching that left leg up, we might press up through the left heel, starting to stack the left hip on top of the right. Point the foot, draw the knee in towards the nose, back is rounding. Inhale, extending, reaching that leg high. Let's draw the knee in towards the nose. Step the foot forward between the hand, option to widen that right hand, option to put the back knee down. Feel free to keep it elevated. We might circle left fingers forward, finding our way into our twist. Now the hips may rise as we return left fingertips to the floor. Please feel free to find the blocks. Half step, take as many steps as needed to bring that right foot forward, looking out, exhaling, chest towards thighs. Let's inhale, rise halfway up. Take your time. I'm going to spin around and face you in mirror directionally. So you might have your hands on props, and we may center the left hand and we may move that left hand a little further forward. We'll get lighter on the right hand, bending left knee, rotating, twisting towards the right. That right arm may rise. The right hand might rotate behind you. We might bend the elbow, wrap the arm behind the back. Right hand can flex around the waist or bind left thigh. We might experiment with straightening the legs, maybe tipping in a little deeper. Let's unwind, bringing that right hand down to a block, centering the right hand, maybe moving it a little bit forward. And we'll bend the right knee. Left leg is working closer to straight, so the hips are asymmetrical. The left hip is higher than the right, and that left arm may rise. We might mobilize through the fingers, through the wrists. We can stay here. We might wrap the arm behind the back, flexing the hand around side body, around the front of the right thigh. We might extend that right leg. Maybe we drop our block lower. Which variation feels the best for you? It doesn't have to be with the hand low or with the left arm bound. And then gradually unwind. Find your way back to that symmetrical forward fold. Let's bend into the knees, fan the toes, hug the belly muscles in, and let the arms alternately X-cross as we roll up to stand. Now, as we find our way to stand, we'll stay off those wrists for a moment. We're back at the top to edge of the mat if we happen to have come off it. Let's sink the hips, bend the knees, and create the action of hugging those inner thighs in. So the knees aren't going to touch, and if that starts to happen, you can always just plug something between the knees or between the thighs so that you're finding that squat sit position. And let the arms rise. So those of us that tend to be very back bendy, I'm over exaggerating it, draw the ribs back. We might sink a little lower. Exhale, find your forward fold. Option to have those hands on the props. Inhale, heart rising. Let's reach that left leg back. Left heel may stay high. We might spin our blocks higher, lift the heart. Hands may find the hips, shoulders back. You can always put that back knee down to help with balance. We may be rolling shoulders back, fanning right toes, and perhaps taking both arms overhead. The throat may draw back, the gaze may rise. And let's bend the elbows, bring the hands back down to the blocks. Step the left leg in as we extend the right leg closer to straight. And we might be dropping that left heel down. Maybe that left heel is pivoting a little bit to the right as we tip in. Lengthen the neck. We may be bending back into that front knee, moving our blocks a little further forward. And consider keeping that back heel, the left heel grounded and pivoting a little to the right. Now the hands might be walking up that front thigh, binding the hips. If you need a little more room, wider or forward, take it. And the arms may rise. The gaze may rise. The throat may slide back. Consider bending the elbows out wide to the side. They might even move towards one another on the back. And then take a little rest with that front leg. Straighten the front leg as the arms rise back up. Bending into that front knee, elbows moving in. And inhale, the arms may rise. So next time we come down, we're bending into that front knee. Consider hands to the hips, elbows rolling back, or maybe binding the hands. We might extend the arms, and we can stop here. Or perhaps we slide the right ribs inside, right thigh, taking the bound arms over our head like long rabbit ears. Let's rebend the elbows, release the hands. Consider stepping back, down face dog, shift it out. Sending sits bones back and high. Rocking on forward, find high plank. We may release under the right forearm, then the left forearm, chin tucking in towards chest. We might slide on forward, lower down to the belly. Feel free to release knees first if that feels better for your back. We might be pointing toes, walking elbows forward, lengthening. And then consider pressing down into the elbows. Create the action of hugging the elbows towards the hips, but they're not going to lift up, so they're really not moving much. It's more just like a little slide of the skin. Lift the ribs, draw the belly button in. Maybe the pelvis floats off the floor. You probably feel a lot of engagement in that front body. Releasing back down. Spin the palms to face up, let the heart rise. Palms may touch. Lift the ribs, the belly button, the pelvis. And let's release back down one more time. Forearms supine it, palms face up. Release the hands down the brow. Slide the hands back, pressing into a child's pose. And we might rock, shift the hips a little side to side. Creep the fingerprints a little further forward. And then let's slide the arms in and consider grabbing a couple of blocks if you've got them. So if you have the marshmallow, really squishy variety of blocks, just be very careful with this and definitely have them on their lowest setting. We're probably all going to be medium if your blocks are super sturdy. Maybe medium, definitely don't do high. That'll be too rocky, even if they're sturdy blocks. So plant the hands and let's rise up into down face dog. Slide that left foot in closer to the right and let the right leg rise. Let's draw the knee in towards the chest. So we're rounding the back. Now the blocks are giving us a little more height. So if we find that right foot usually kind of stalls out and doesn't make it all the way forward, using the blocks may help us get the foot between the hands. So again, if you have the really sturdy blocks, Maybe you even try the medium setting, so you'll get even more height. So we'll try it a second time. We'll draw that knee into the chest and land that right foot forward. And let's just follow it with the left. Let that left leg rise, stepping left foot alongside the right, look out, and exhale, chest to thighs. Sink the hips, bend the knees, feel free to plug a block between the legs. Let the heart rise, and I'm gonna run into the ceiling here. Your arms might be reaching up. I'm gonna take mine out to cactus, draw the ribs back, we're really back bendy. And as we exhale, tipping in, finding that forward fold. Deposit your block back on the ground, inhale halfway up, and let's reach that right leg back. So we may be wiggling the heel back, stacking the wrist right under the shoulders, walking the hands up the thigh, hands to the hips, fan left toes, front toes. Both arms may rise. The gaze may rise. We can lift up out of it if we need a little less. We can sink down more. You could always deposit that back knee on the ground if that's a better option for you in this moment. Let's bend the elbows, place the hands down. And maybe we went for a really long stance and we need to shorten it. So maybe we move the left foot inward. Extending left leg, right heel may pivot towards the left. Fanning left toes, we may be tipping in. Looking for ease of breath. Look for ease through the neck, the jaw, the inner leg, the back of the leg. That might be fairly intense. You're just looking for your boundary there. We might glide the hips a little side to side. And let's start to rise partway up. Now, if you really shorten the stance, which I did, you might need to adjust the feet a little wider apart before making your way into that warrior one variation. So hands coming back up onto the front thigh to the hips. If it feels like you're on a tightrope, separate the feet wider. The arms maybe reaching up towards the ceiling, fanning those left toes. And the elbows may bend, finding balance. Try to keep the gaze on something forward in front of you, something that won't move. Now we might extend that left leg towards straight as we reach the arms high. And as we exhale, bending. Inhale, reaching up. And as we exhale, come on down. We might extend the arms behind the back, weaving the fingers together, perhaps with the second thumb on top. Reach those arms back. Maybe we're adding in that forward lean. Taking the bound arms overhead. Rebending elbows. Placing hands back on the ground. Stepping back, down face dog. So we might just shift a little side to side. And consider releasing onto the knees. And this might just be a brief release onto the knees. You might want to cushion the knees. We may hold on to opposite elbows, place the elbows on the ground, and then weave the fingers together, moving the hands forward. We might not weave the fingers together, so that creates pressure on that under pinky. You might just spin the palms so that they're on the floor. Let's tuck the toes, lift the hips. So we're considering coming into dolphin. So dolphin is often more intense on the shoulders and the backs of the legs than our forearm plank. You can always walk the feet a little further back, or maybe just choose to stay on the knees or choose to stay in down dog. And if you decide you want a little more challenge with this, we might step the left foot closer to the right and raise the right leg up in the air. So just a possibility. Releasing right foot down, and we might try the same thing with the left leg up in the air. Again, just a possibility. We'll release that left foot down to the ground. If you brought it up, step the feet back, sliding forward into that forearm plank, and lower onto the belly. Let the elbows walk forward. Find a little bit of length, a little rock. And come all the way down. Let's turn the head to one side, spin the palms to face up. Resting on a cheek. Turn the head to the second side, resting on the other cheek. Let's slide the hands in. We may roll it back into a child's pose, but then find those blocks. So we'll come into that down dog with the hands on blocks, and we might start with the lowest setting first. We might stay with the lowest setting. So we'll find that dog position. Drop the weight down into the right foot and let that left leg come high. Draw the knee into the chest, rounding the back, stepping left foot forward between the hands. Now, maybe if that foot still didn't quite make it, we send the blocks up again. If the blocks are very sturdy to medium, take it back, and we'll try that again. So the left leg may rise, round the back, stepping the left foot forward between the hands. And if the foot didn't make it, go ahead and inchworm the toes forward, or place your hand behind the lower leg and just scooch the leg a little further forward. But maybe we're sliding the foot back actually to help us lift the right leg high. Stepping right foot forward and releasing the foot down to the ground. Give the head a little nod. Foot bend into the knees. Hug those inner thighs in. Circle the arms up. And as we exhale, let's rise up to stand. Shift out anything that needs it. Let's step out wide stance. So the toes are facing the long edge of the mat. And let's pivot right toes. I'm going to mirror in this orientation. Right toes towards a short edge of the mat, and we'll lunge into that front knee. We may be bringing right forearm onto the thigh. We may heel toe, left leg further back. And perhaps we place left hand on left shoulder. We might reach that elbow up. We might reach it overhead. We may point the elbow down towards the ground, bring it back up and around. And maybe that was more range of motion than we want at this moment. We might just move the elbow overhead. Maybe we circle in the other direction, dropping the elbow down, moving it forward, taking it back up, and extending the arm. We might rotate the wrist and bring the arm behind the back, hand flexing around waist or binding thigh. And we can stay here. We do not have to go anywhere else. We don't even have to go here. Maybe we slide a prop inside right foot and release that right hand onto the prop. Whatever height you like. So high, medium, low, maybe on the floor. So let's take our time to extend that right leg, work that right leg closer to straight. We could keep the left arm where it is, or we might start to extend, reach that left arm up. We might elevate the left ribs and sweep that top arm, left arm, alongside the head. Maybe a little bend in that top elbow. And let's bend back into the front knee. Consider taking the block with you if you're using one. Strong legs. We'll come back up, pivoting, right toes in, left toes out. When you're ready, lunging into that left knee, we might just drop off a prop. Let the left forearm rest on the thigh. You do not have to go anywhere else. We might place that right hand on the head of the shoulder. We may start to draw that elbow overhead. We might circle the elbow down, around, back up. We could keep it high and do smaller, more subtle circles. We may go the other way. And we may find the place where we expand that top arm up in the air. We may wrap the arm behind the back, flex the hand around the waist, maybe bind the thigh. Maybe we're sliding the left hand onto the block. We're sliding the legs wider apart. strong legs start to extend that left leg closer to straight. Maybe we're reaching that right arm, right ribs up. Maybe we're cycling the right arm over to that left short edge of the mat where the left toes are. And we may bend back into that front knee, hugging heel to instep. So strong legs again. We're rising up to stand. Pivot the toes in. And if the feet feel like they've slid or they're just a little too wide, heel, toe, feet in. Feel free to have a couple of blocks nearby. We might just bend the knees, hinge at the hips, bringing ourselves down into a wide-legged forward bend. So you could have your hands on blocks. You could have your hands on the ground. Maybe we're giving the head a little nod. Maybe we're giving the hips a little shift, side to side. Looking for those little pockets of underused areas. Perhaps we're placing our elbows, our forearms on the floor or on blocks. We may slide the hands in and rise halfway up. Perhaps hands on those blocks. Locate the left toes, angle the left foot to the left, going for a lateral lunge. So we could stay up fairly high. We might come down a little lower. Some of us might be coming down pretty low, even rolling onto that right heel. You can always sit on a block. We're kind of somewhere in the middle. Remember, there's an option for everyone. So just looking for your spot. Let's bring it back up to center. Hit it left foot in. We'll walk the hands towards right. We'll angle right toes out, lunging into that right thigh. And we can stay up, engaging that left thigh. We might slide a block back because we know we may want to sit on it. And we might roll onto that opposite heel, left heel. Whichever variation you come into, let's bring ourselves back up through center and just check the feet. We might need to pivot those feet in, rise halfway up, heel, toe, bring the feet back to hips distance, put a little bend in the knees, and as you feel ready, rising up to stand, shift it out. So please feel free to use a wall. Let's drop the weight down into the left foot and invite that right knee high. We'll give that right knee a boost, shoulders back. Fix your gaze on something that won't move. So maybe an inanimate object on the wall or the floor. We may be pulling right toes up. We may be crossing right ankle on top of left and sitting down for that figure four. Perhaps we connect palms together. We might sink a little lower. We might even connect forearms to the shin. Just possibilities. Well, let's rise back up. Reach out through that right leg. Rebend, release. Shift out anything that needs it. So second time, remember you can use a wall. You might even just do it sitting in a chair or lying on your back. We may be lifting that left leg, support the shin. Shoulders stay on the back, crown of the head high. Easy breath, soft gaze, slack jaw. We may pull the toes up. We may be bending right knee, standing knee. Shift the hips back, crossing left ankle on top of right thigh. Sitting into that figure four. You can use the hands on the thigh against a wall, palms may connect. Maybe you sink lower and bring the forearms onto the thigh. And let's gradually rise on up, extend that leg, rebend, release, shift out anything that needs it. Let's think about how you might want to come down to the ground today. Maybe you've had enough with the down dogs and forward bends. Please feel free to come down any way that suits you. We may be bending the knees, circling the arms high. Exhale, forward fold. We may walk on back to that dog and release each knee to the ground and slide the hips to one side. Let's bring those feet forward. And we mentioned earlier, maybe having something to elevate the legs on. So you might have a chair seat or a balance ball or something nearby that you could use for a prop. And it could just be a cushion. So let's bring ourselves onto our back body. We'll have that prop nearby, but give yourself a little bit of room. So we'll come on to back body, and we may find that cactus arm position where the elbows are bent and the nose tip points up to the ceiling instead of turning the head towards the device. And let's lift the hips, knees reaching forward, fingertips may move to the heels. And then gradually releasing down. So give yourself a moment and just notice how the back body feels. So we may repeat that, pressing into the elbows, hugging the shoulders down, let the hips rise, fingertips maybe pointing towards the heels. Inner thighs keep moving in towards midline. So that just means that we're not letting our legs butterfly out to the side or drop out to the side. And let's release that. Come on down to the back. And then for fun, let's really go for the butterflying. Let's take the soles of the feet together. Little toe sides of the feet touch the ground, and the right knee drops right, the left knee drops left, and we may really be feeling this in the inner thighs. We might be pressing down into the elbows, tuck the shoulders under, press into the little toe sides of the feet, and let the hips rise. And that should alleviate the intensity or the majority of the intensity in those inner thighs. This is an active variation. And then gradually let the hips return to the floor. And if you let go of all of that activation, you will definitely notice it go back into those inner thighs. And it might be a lot more than you want. So please feel free to plug a couple of props in underneath the knees or under the thighs. And we'll heel toe, feet wide, let the knees rock in. So feet wide, knees tipping in. Step the feet together, lift the hips, move the hips a little to the left, and then rock the knees over to the right for a supine twist. So we may be placing that right hand on the left thigh or knee. We might be spinning the chin to the left. We may extend left arm, or if it feels better still, to bend the elbow. And let's gradually bring it back to center. Touch the feet down, lift the hips, and move the hips over to the right. Let's sweep those legs back in, move knees left, maybe left hand is on right leg. Right arm may expand. We may prefer some degree of bend in that right elbow. And we'll gradually return to center. Rock the hips through to center. We might rock the knees in, give the back a little self-massage, figure eights, and then find your prop. So if it's a balance ball or a chair seat, we're lifting those knee pits up onto the prop. If it's a pillow, we're just tucking the pillow underneath the backs of the legs. So make sure that your low back is supported. If we come up and the low back is hovering, grab something, maybe your blanket or even a cushion, and put it underneath the hips. The backs of the arms may rest on the ground, but if the floor is at all chilly, you might either want a blanket or towels under the hands, or maybe let the hands rest on the body. Let the head find a centered, easeful position. Inviting the eyes to rest. Scanning the body. Letting the back of the head be fully supported. Letting the eyes rest. The teeth may be parted. The lips may be parted. Breathing ease down the neck. Shoulders supported. Arms at rest. We may notice a gentle rise and fall of the chest with each breath cycle. Hips fully supported. Belly unwinding. Thighs at rest. Lower legs at rest. And please know that you are welcome to continue resting here as long as you like, as long as time allows. The breath may be deepening. We may be returning movement to fingers, to toes. We may be circling wrists. Perhaps we slide the arms overhead, reach long, arch the back, glide the hips, and exhale, letting it go. We may slide the knees into the chest and rock to rest on one side. At your own rhythm, supporting yourself to a seat. Maybe bringing that second favorite leg back on top. We may be rubbing the hands together, placing a hand to the belly, a hand to the heart. Sealing our practice with sound. Deep inhale through the nose. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this practice. Let me know if you have any questions.